I got a question for you. How many timelines do you think there are in Dragon Ball? 2, right? The past and the future? But that's not quite right. We know villains messed with time and how they distorted the world, and so I want to go over each of the main ones and break down the differences. Plus, I'm thinking of doing a full Dragon Ball timeline video in the future, so explaining this beforehand will help clear up some questions that may be had when I go through multiple timeline events at the same time. With all that out of the way, let's get started. For our first timeline, the events are the same as all timelines up until Goku uses instant transmission to reach Earth, facing off against Mecha Frieza and his father. He would spend a few years in peace before ultimately passing away from a heart virus with no known cure. Sometime later, Dr. Gero would meet his end by his own creations, androids 17 and 18. As they go on a rampage, they wipe out most of the Z-Fighters we come to know and love, outside of characters like Gohan, Trunks, Roshi, and apparently Yajirobe. As over a decade passes, Gohan struggles to fight the pair, attempting to at least slow down their destruction of humanity. He would train a young Trunks, who would inevitably take his place as Earth's protector after his passing. In a bid to create a better future for his world, Trunks journeys to the past to find a way to defeat the dreadful cyborgs and provide Goku medicine for his condition, thereby creating the second timeline. After returning, he would wait 3 years to travel to the past and help in the fight against the androids. According to the Daizenshuu Timeline's explanation, Trunks returns to the future and defeats 17 and 18 with the remote control shutdown device, which he learned about in the past. He sets the machine to return to the altered timeline to give his friends the good news, but there was something he could never prepare for. A bio-android named Cell was robbed of 2 vital components to become the perfect life form, and now seeks revenge. He disposes of Trunks easily, and then uses the time machine to travel back to a time when 17 and 18 are alive and can be absorbed into his being. And so, that's the end. We have no idea what happens to this timeline after this. Kind of a sad way to end what started it all, as with Trunks gone, there isn't anyone stronger than Roshi to protect the planet. If any threat appeared on this Earth, I shudder to think what would happen. But, with Bulma most likely still alive, she could probably cook something up to save her time. Maybe? Regardless, we will never know the fate of the true original timeline. Something interesting to note is the Cell of this era explains that Dr. Gero's computer believed it had no need of Trunks' cells when he defeated Frieza and King Cold. But that doesn't really make sense. How would the computer have this data in this timeline? It'd be a time paradox unless you believe some unknown timeline's Trunks came to this world. It doesn't really make sense, but it's worth bringing up as a potential rabbit hole that we may not actually know the true original timeline at all. Thinking about it though, if this is real, that would make this unknown version of Trunks the most fraudulent character in Dragon Ball. He went back to the past to kill Frieza and King Cold when Goku could have handled that easily, does not give Goku the heart medicine, does not warn the Z-Fighters about the androids, and so the timeline plays out exactly the same just without Goku finishing off the Cold family. Awesome work, man. Why did you even show up? As of right now though, there's nothing to work off of. So I just assume it was a mistake in the writing, as it is hard to keep track of every little piece when creating this story week by week. It's up to you whether you accept it or not. Now let's talk about the second timeline, where Trunks goes back into the past to stop Frieza, mistakenly believing Goku would not arrive in time. Seems like we may be in the main timeline now, right? Actually, this one is quite different from the one you know. After handing Goku the heart medicine and explaining the threat they will face in 3 years from now, Trunks returns to the future. As you know, the Z-Fighters train during the time skip and eventually face the androids again with the help of Trunks. We have no clue which exact androids they face outside of 17 and 18, but they most likely lost their first confrontation with the siblings. However, they must have become aware of the schematics of the duo and created the remote control to shut them down. They most likely used it to deactivate the androids, as this Trunks probably did not ascend the Super Saiyan state, or, you know, he would have easily crushed Imperfect Cell in the future. Since Trunks returned to his future in order to defeat his own androids, we no longer know what happens in this timeline. The Daizenshuu timeline chart says that the Cell games would take place without Trunks present, but that brings up a lot of questions. Cell traveling to the past creates a different main timeline, so he can't appear here. Therefore, it must refer to the Cell of this timeline. But how would Trunks find the shutdown blueprints without noticing Cell's huge incubation pod? How does Cell find the androids? Were they properly shut down and destroyed? Were they stored away? Or were they reformed like their main timeline counterparts? Are we to believe Cell hosted the Cell games in his imperfect form? Also, Cell woke up long into the future when Trunks was a young adult, meaning it'd be around the time of the end of Z before he would challenge the Z Fighters here. Did they experience any of Babidi's invasion? Goku wouldn't have access to Super Saiyan 3 or Fusion during the Buu arc due to the lack of training in Otherworld. And if they managed to make it through those trials, how would Cell even be a challenge to them? There's just so many questions, making this one of the most interesting timelines to theorize over. Now let's go over Timeline 3, otherwise being the main timeline we know today. Or so you may think. When Cell went into the past, the time machine was somehow set to 3 years before the activation of the androids. He claims it was not his intention, as somehow the machine was already set that way, but it provided a convenient window for his larval body to mature back into his imperfect form. You see, Bulma's time machine makes a temporal connection wherein time will pass the same for both timelines. Meaning when Trunks told the Z Fighters to prepare for 3 years, he also had to wait those same years in the future. However, by going back to another point in time, rather than keeping the synchronized time stream Trunks had, Cell inadvertently made another present timeline. But since Future Trunks is still alive and well when Cell is active in this timeline, it means Future Trunks now has a split history as well. So essentially, Cell's time travel turned the world from 2 timelines into 4, where we do not follow the previous 2 versions of history and only focus on timelines 3 and 4. Considering Cell's arrival is the earliest change in history, we probably always followed the 3rd timeline when we observe the arc in real time. So the rest of the arc goes as presented in the manga and anime, with the Super Saiyan form being surpassed and Cell being obliterated down to the last, well, Cell. Trunks then returns to the future, now being the 4th timeline we'll get into next. The Buu arc and Super play out the same, with Goku and Vegeta ascending to the heights of gods. But then, another set of events leads to the fates of timelines 3 and 4 intersecting once again. Trunks returns to the present to warn of a new threat, a being masquerading as Goku going by Goku Black. In the anime, the villain would find himself brought to this world thanks to his time ring and engage in a one-on-one brawl with Goku, before being sucked back through the Terran time. Investigating the energy of this imposter leads Beerus, Whis, and Goku to the Supreme Kai apprentice Zamasu in Universe 10, where Goku would test his strength and instill a grudge in the unstable Kai. Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks travel to the future and back, using the present as their base to regroup and strategize. But once Zamasu learned more of Goku's exploits from GodTube and the Super Dragon Balls from Zuno, he would murder Guwasu and gather the Wish Orbs to switch bodies with Goku. From there, he traveled to Earth to eliminate the now confused Goku and his family. Using the power of the Time Ring, capable of entering the future without limits, he traveled to Timeline 4 to terrorize Trunks' future, thereby showcasing a time loop where Goku Black would be responsible for his own creation. In the manga, Goku Black never returns to the present timeline, and Goku does not meet Zamasu face to face, leading to a more linear set of events where Zamasu just decided to steal Goku's body purely from seeing his fights from afar. What exactly happens in this timeline after Zamasu stole Goku's body is unclear. Did the jealous god leave this world alone? Did he eliminate every mortal on Earth before leaving? He probably wouldn't be able to stand up to Blue Vegeta upon immediately gaining Goku's body, so he most likely left for the future after what we saw in the flashback. So, the Z Fighters may have been able to get Goku, Chi-Chi, and Goten back to life with the Dragon Balls, but Goku would probably need a wish from Super Shenron to get his old body back, if that's possible. It's a timeline full of unknowns, with an interesting future. The same events happened from the original timeline up to the point of Trunks going back to help in the fight with the androids, as Cell's presence incentivizes him to stay and investigate. Once Trunks arrives back in his time, he has improved his Super Saiyan to the point that the androids and Cell are mere child's play. Years would pass before Babidi's forces make themselves known, most likely not finding enough powerful energy on this version of Earth until this point, as Earth had time to settle, and the androids probably produced no Keely to measure. After training with the Supreme Kai and mastering the Z-Sword, Trunks engaged in a battle with Dabura, but would find himself being outmatched by the demon's power and abilities. Both Kibito and the Supreme Kai would pass away in this fight, leading to the death of Beerus and the shutdown of Whis. Trunks would achieve Super Saiyan 2 and eliminate the threat before they could ruin his peace any longer. While it seemed that Earth was once again saved, Goku Black observed the battle, ecstatic that a world without Beerus provides the freedom to set his plans into motion. He would sometime later decimate Earth, with Trunks and any sort of earthly resistance being unable to stop him. As we all know, Trunks would escape to the past and return with Goku and Vegeta. Within the confrontation, future Zamasu would reveal himself, and they would unveil that all the gods of the multiverse had been systematically killed by him and Goku Black, thanks to taking out every Supreme Kai. The rest of the arc would play out with the duo waiting for Goku and Vegeta's return multiple times. Once Trunks destroyed future Zamasu's physical body, his unrestrained soul attempts to fuse with reality itself. Future Zeno would be called by Goku and eliminate the entire timeline, with the associated time ring disappearing. A sad fate for this future, one that Trunks laments he couldn't protect in Gohan's place. Timeline 5 has the same history as Timeline 3 up until Goku, Shin, Beerus, and Whis look to catch Zamasu in the act of murder. After gaining undeniable proof of Zamasu's attempt to end his master's life, Beerus wipes him out before he can swap bodies with Goku. Because Goku Black was currently in the future timeline during this action, the change does not affect his existence and the timeline is split once again. One where Zamasu stole Goku's body and fled into the future, and one where Beerus killed Zamasu before that could happen. More trips to the future occur until eventually the group returns one final time, with future Zeno in attendance. Trunks then plans on going back to a point in the future timeline before Goku Black's arrival, and so departs once again. The rest of this timeline is basically just the Tournament of Power up to Superhero, and whatever else they want to do if Super returns. While we haven't seen this timeline, and may very well never know what happens, the Future Trunks arc's ending gives us some idea of what could go down. In the anime, present timeline Whis planned to go wake up this timeline's Beerus to deal with Zamasu while Shin was still alive. In the manga, Trunks and Mai plan to go back in time before Shin was killed and from there reach Beerus. Either way, a new timeline is created and now two future Trunks and Mai exist together in the same time period. While definitely an awkward situation, hopefully this leads to a future where they can finally see peace. Of course, there are plenty of other timelines in Dragon Ball when you delve into other media, especially the video games. The Xenoverse series counts most of the animated material as elements of the true history, meaning even outside of the hundreds of Parallel Quest timelines and time rifts, the true history would include the timelines of GT, Super, probably Daima, and all the Z movies present in the game. Toki Toki's eggs also create new timelines and are a cause of celebration to a point even Whis warns Beerus not to interfere, leading one to wonder if this means the birth of another world in the true history. Heroes gives us countless timelines, most notably the Zeno timeline, which are where the main recruits of the Time Patrol come from. The Crimson Masked Saiyan gains his massive strength by killing 99 Gokus from different timelines. There's so many timelines that the Ultra God Mission arc is a story where the former Supreme Kai of Time Eos decides to host some sort of Tournament of Power style competition where the losing timelines are erased until only the strongest true history remains. While there may be only a handful of main timelines, we know there are infinite possibilities in Dragon Ball. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. In research for creating a big Dragon Ball timeline, I realized the topic of multiple timelines was a muddled and confusing endeavor, so I thought it would be fun to discuss first. Dragon Ball was a story made on the fly, and despite that, Toriyama made a confusing timeline plot in the Android arc easy enough to go along with for the average person. Even if many details don't make sense, it doesn't really hinder your enjoyment or understanding of most of the plot. It's only when you dig deep that things start to get jumbled, but it's always fun to walk through and try and figure it all out. Have yourself a wonderful day, and take care.